me something, then maybe I'll chat or something. So I'm here to kind of go over the episode. And so this was episode 19, which I can't believe that it's episode 19 of my podcast, which is awesome. That's really, really cool. And that I'm coming up on 20, which I did a recording for today, which is going to be really fun. I'm excited to bring you all that. It's going to be a lot of fun. So that episode, the episode I just did, was about basically sexual entitlement and social media and DMs and basically the things women are getting in their inboxes. There's Hillary. Hey girl. Hey. And I'm still getting messages from people. That's the crazy thing. So last week I put out something on social media about, hey, well, what has your experience in social media or in DMs on Instagram? Hey, Joel, Team Toogie in the house. That's right. So what has women's experience been in these, like, kind of maybe even private spaces, maybe not even something that you expected to get? So like, I use my example in the episode that I've been using Instagram, like right now, for Erica Miley therapy, for my practice, to talk about the podcast, connect with listeners, connect with lots of people. And my friends and my family are all in there. And I started getting random ads from people, or I would get random messages from people I didn't know. And they were messages like, hey, beautiful, hey, sexy, or they would actually like send me pictures of their body parts unsolicited. And it's kind of crazy to me that was happening, when it's really hard for me to hold back and not just be snarky about it and be like, yo, do you realize you're sending DMs to a sex therapist? Like, do you understand that's what's happening? I've seen some other folks jump on. I see Bree and Jessica and Jason. Hey. I just think it's really interesting that that people feel like they can send these messages unsolicited. And a lot of times, I've seen folks, they'll come to me and they'll say, hey, I've been trying to go through the dating apps and I'm getting a lot of private messages, and they're immediately like the dick pic, or they're immediately the, hey, are you down to jump in, you just want to get together and hook up, which is great. Hookup culture is what it is. That's fine, as long as you're treating each individual person with the consent they deserve. Every person deserves consent, and not every person is going to want you random strangers dick pic in their DMs. So that being said, I some of the stories, I felt really honored that folks were messaging me and commenting on the posts about their own experiences. I just want to say thank you to all of you who sent me stuff about your experience. And I just kind of reiterate some of the stories, and the common thread that I hear is that it's not asked for, typically, one. And two, that even when someone says, no, I don't want this thing, whether it's a dick pic or no, I don't want this attention, or women often just block them, because if they respond in any way, they typically get negative response. They get responses like calling them names, calling them like whores and things like that, even though they didn't initiate the conversation. So why I wanted to talk about this is this is what's called sexual entitlement. When you believe your sexual needs are more important than someone else's. So as if you are owed, if that makes sense. So I know that's not an easy thing to kind of understand. One of my favorite videos out there is it's actually there's an animated version on YouTube. You can actually find it, and it's I think it's called Consent is a Cup of Tea. And it relates consent to getting a cup of tea. And that if you don't understand, like, if someone offers you a cup of tea and you refuse it, and you wouldn't necessarily take that cup of tea and then dump it down their throat. So if you can understand that, you can understand consent. So this episode kind of goes right to that conversation of consent and of rape culture and of, like, I know that a lot of this can feel like male bashing. I promise you that is not my intention in any way, nor was it any of the intention of any of the women that have sent me the screenshots that they took of some of the stuff that they've received. It's just really, I just want people to know better. I very much believe the more you know, the more you can do better. The more that you can, because if you honestly don't understand that, like if you honestly don't understand that if you were to catcall somebody, that it doesn't feel like a compliment to us as people. It just does not. And it typically results in feelings of fear, not necessarily feeling appreciated. So this was something we kind of talked about when in the comments of what we were, when we were talking about the stories, was that, like, this is almost like the modern catcalling, the internet age of catcalling. Hillary says, I think females sometimes are just as bad as men. Consent either way is absolutely key. I think you're absolutely right there. Like, I think consent and how we talk about relationships is something that we don't do well in this country, in the United States anyway. And there are other countries that have the same problem. But we do not talk about, one, how to have a healthy relationship, and we don't talk about what that means then to create relationship. We don't talk about how do you create a healthy sexual relationship with someone. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about it in schools, and parents often have no idea how to begin that conversation. I honestly I get clients sometimes who call me and say, hey, can we do this talk with my kid, just because I want to take the pressure off? And then it's something that I know as a sex therapist. I know that other therapists who are also sex educators and therapists would be happy to do that with you, to be able to support you the best way that they know how, so that you can educate the people in your life the best way you know, rather than relying on the internet to teach your children how to have healthy relationship, how to have healthy sexual interactions, because the internet does not give context to children. It does not give context. It gives you everything. It gives you everything you've asked for. And for a kid, that's not necessarily the best deal. They need to understand how to have relationship and have a sexual relationship. Those things need to go together. Because otherwise, we all kind of stumble through it. So I'm out here. I know I can just get on the box and I just get talking and talking and talking. I'm out here in my PJs with the Bud Light Lime. Yes, cheap and delicious. Hillary, movies and TVs are such bad influences. Oh, yes. Oh. One of my favorite sex educators slash she's a sex worker as well. She talks about that porn in particular. Porn is performance. It isn't sex education. And that's where many, many, many children are getting education now, which is not awesome. There are great resources out there for parents. O School is a wonderful free resource for adults who need more information. I refer to teenagers to, or I refer adults to, because it's a great resource. I talked about this in episode 17, I believe, that Scarletine, checked out that website. That website is amazing. You can go into the search bar and ask your question, and it's going to give you something great. I think there are so many resources that, one, we don't talk about enough. One. Two, that actually, it's funny that I'm talking about this in the episode I recorded today. Something me and the person I interviewed we talked about this very thing, that not only when you try to create light and create those resources for people to be able to find more information, it's sometimes censored. For instance, even though I'm here live talking to all of you, when I've tried to put resources sometimes on Facebook, I can't do it. It doesn't allow it because it has sexual words in it. Or I can't create a Facebook ad because I'm a sex therapist, and anything that can even sound like it might be sexual is immediately blocked. So we have a funny expectation of our world. We have a funny expectation of both men and women, and anybody trying to create a relationship, trying to create sexual intimacy with someone else, that we have this expectation of being a sexual expert by the time you're a certain age without providing the information. It's kind of, it's an unfair expectation. So people go to the places they can find to get the information. And who has a lot of money? Pornography, because we give it to them. So there's a really interesting book I'm actually reading right now about our sexual fantasies and what's actually more common and what's healthy. And I think I'm going to do an episode about it. It's called Tell Me What You Like, from Dr. Justin Lee Miller, and he did a massive study on sexual fantasy, and there's a lot of really interesting commonalities that we all seem to have, but we're not talking about. So if anybody has questions or listen to the episode, or if you have a story, I could just sit here and talk. I'm also very tired. This was the first week of school for the kids here. It's trying to get a kid on a sleep schedule after summer. I know my fellow parents out there are just as tired as I am. It's been a long week. That's why the Bud Light Lime. So I just kind of wanted to jump on here, connect with anybody if anybody had any questions. The next episode it's a lot of fun. Excuse me, beer makes me burp. The next episode's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be about reclaiming your pussy. So hopefully you all weren't watching this with all the children around. But it's going to be pretty awesome. I interviewed a very fun person, and shout out to Madam President if you're watching. It'll be a lot of fun. I hope you all enjoy it. So again, if you have any questions, hit me up on any of the socials. You can find Sex Talk on pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. iTunes, if you jump on iTunes and subscribe, you'll get every episode right there. It'll jump right into your feed. You won't have to miss one. And you can also check it out on my website, ericamiley.com. And we're on Spotify now. Woo! It was so easy. I put that off for far too long. I thought it was going to be a production. It wasn't. It was very easy to click, submit. It was, it was bad. It's like, man, why did I do this? Oh, Hillary, you've got a great question. How do you suggest talking to a 5-year-old about their private parts? Oh, this is an excellent question. Having a 5-year-old myself, it's so funny to watch kids as they start to develop and they figure out their bodies. They start to figure out that they have these interesting things. They start to figure out they have interesting sensations, and part of that is their genitals. So oftentimes boys and girls, it is very typical for ages 5 of boys and girls both, because think of it this way. Same parts, just different configurations, because that's how we develop in the womb. There's a really wonderful book called Come as You Are by Dr. Emily Nagoski. Love her, want her on the podcast, please, Emily Nagoski. So that she does this wonderful breakdown, and it's a easy to read visual chart of how we develop our genitalia. Now, once we come out of the womb, those nerve endings start to turn on and start to connect to the brain very quickly. So 3, 4, 5, they start trying to figure that out with their hands, and anything, they'll put stuff in there, they'll do lots of things with it because it feels interesting. And it's nothing more than that, is that it feels interesting. Sometimes people get worried like it's sexual, or that they're like trying to do something. They're not, honestly. It's really nerve endings. Those are interesting. Look at this fun new toy. I tell you what, still now, my son, and he's going to hate it. Someday he'll hate that, I tell this story, that he'll just walk out in the middle of the room and just wag his wiener around, like just think he's the funniest thing alive, because it's this fun tool he's got. He's got this fun thing that he's trying to understand and how it works. So typically what I do help them understand is that those are theirs and that no one should be touching them. That is one thing that is helpful to start talking about at this age. And that the other thing is helpful to start talking about them at this age is that you have your own body parts and you get to decide who and gets to touch those. So sometimes they'll still want to touch breasts or touch something that they don't have. Then it's, as a parent, you get to say, hey, this is mine. This is mine, and I get to decide who gets to touch that. And so do you. You get to decide as you get older who gets to touch it. But if there's a doctor and the doctor needs to make sure that you're healthy, mom and dad or mom and caregiver, whoever is around that you trust, will be right there with you when that happens. So helping them understand that they're not weird, they're not broken, they're not, that it is a part of life. If they're really playing with it, sometimes it's helpful to say, hey, how about it, especially if there's people in your house, you don't want them to just, drop their pants in the middle of company. You'd be like, hey, you can go do that in your room. Or, hey, you can do that when we don't have guests here. Because your friends and everything, they have their own, but they don't necessarily want to see yours. Making it as simple as that, making it as simple as you possibly can make it. And I promise you, if they're rumming it on things, whether they have penis, vagina, whatever configuration they have, it's pretty typical. And take them to the doctor if they start shoving items up there that they shouldn't. I see some other folks on here who've jumped on. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to see everybody on here. If there's any other questions, if not, I'm gonna jump off here. I am wiped out, folks. I am tired. So if you have any other questions, I'm happy to jump in the comments and answer them later on tonight and tomorrow. So that's all. I'm gonna see y'all later. Have a good week. And I look forward to seeing y'all next time when we drop the one with the Madam President. That's a teaser for next time. All right, y'all. See you soon.